Good evening and welcome to We the People. Time was when the pursuit of a suitable boy or a suitable girl was India's favourite national obsession. But now is the idea of marriage, or at least the idea of conventional marriage, under the scanner, maybe even under threat. At least will marriage have to take a hard look at itself as an institution and change some of the rules as society, particularly urban India, changes. This past week, the Supreme Court endorsed live-in relationships and premarital sex as something that belonged to the right to life. In fact, the Supreme Court in its observations invoked Radha and Krishna from Hindu mythology to question why actress Khushbu had to face an onslaught of legal cases, 22 of them, for daring to suggest that it was all right for young girls and women to indulge in premarital sex as long as they took the requisite precautions. Well, on the program today, we are debating whether live-in relationships will challenge the institution of marriage as we know it. Of course, along with our studio audience, you can also post your comments online. Our webpage is ndtv.com/wethepeople. If you prefer, you can also tweet your comments. We'll run your tweets to the length of this program. My Twitter handles @bdat. Let's get started now with Pinky Anand, who's been representing Khushbu in this case in the Supreme Court, where all of these quite path-breaking observations, in a sense, Pinky, were made. Now, firstly, it seems bizarre to me that for Khushbu saying what is a commonly sort of known fact, that look, if you have sex, whatever kind, just take the necessary precautions against HIV, against pregnancy, and so on. This sounds like a responsible statement, someone encouraging people to take precautions, not get into trouble. Instead, she's facing 22 cases. What do you make of the Supreme Court observations?
See, let's not really mix up the two things. What I was arguing for Khushbu in the Supreme Court was ultimately the fundamental right of freedom of speech and expression. One is the subject matter, I mean whether it is controversial or not controversial. Secondly is the simple factum that whether a person is entitled to give their opinion without harassment or provocation from a group of people who choose to file criminal complaints. And I think that was the sum and substance of the entire arguments. What came within that is some observations maybe. But really speaking, the question was, Khushbu responded to an interview by India Today, asking her certain issues, and she responded to them. As you said, one of them was that if you do indulge in sex, then you be careful of AIDS, you be careful of venereal diseases, take precautions. She didn't tell anybody to go and have sex. That's not her statement.
So am I sensing in your statements a kind of reservation about the observations of the Supreme Court?
No. There's no reservation or non-reservation. The matter is reserved for judgment. I don't want to get into that issue.
No, the observations that the court made.
I have no reservations whatsoever in any statement, because what the Supreme Court said is perfectly in order, that today live-in relationship is not considered illegal. And that is the law of the land. I mean, Supreme Court has said nothing which is not as a matter of record. So why should it create any controversy in that respect, in any manner?
All right, but there's clearly a difference between, of course, the law entering people's bedrooms, which it probably shouldn't under any circumstance, no matter what the orientation is, as long as it's consenting sex between adults. But legality aside, what about live-in relationships as a cultural value? How do they juxtapose themselves with the institution of marriage? Kalpana Lajmi, we know you, of course, as a renowned film director, but we also know you as somebody who has lived with Bhupin Hazarika, the much-respected Bhupin Hazarika, for I think decades now? Decades. And refusing to get married to him. Even though he's been wanting to get married, right?
He did, I didn't.
And that's a role reversal, because usually the conventional assumption is women always want to get married and men are the ones who want to fly the coop.
But the real reason was volatile, temperamental, crazy, mad. So every seventh day I thought, no, I won't get married, because if I would, we'd get divorced the next day. And that continued. And now for 38 years we've been living together and still not approved by my mother. So
even at this age, mummy doesn't approve.
No, mummy doesn't approve, though she's wonderful and we live together.
Yeah.
I lost my father last year, so we are all staying together. But one thing is definite. When I made the decision to live in, and especially with Icon and God in Bengal and Assam, it was not easy for me.
Tuba.com,